Welcome to Holding Space with Authentically Amy. This is a place where you don't have to perform, prove, or hold it all together. You're allowed to exhale, to feel, to speak, or just be. Here, your truth is safe, your emotions are honored, and your soul is gently invited to the surface. I'm not here to fix you because I don't believe you're broken. I believe your soul already knows the way. My role isn't to give you advice, but to hold a steady frequency of love so you have space to rise. This podcast is an extension of my own healing. If you're here, you belong, and I'm honored to sit beside you. Welcome back to another episode of Holding Space with Authentically Amy. I am so glad that you're here tagging along for another episode. I am honored to welcome my new friend, Jon. Jon, thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for opening up this space, Amy.
Of course. I am eager to know more about you. And as you said, I am just here to hold space for you. And so whatever you feel like is heavy on your heart that might help to talk about, I'm here for that. And I'll just turn it over to you and let you take it from there.
Thank you. Okay. Well, Amy, I'm a man that spends his working time helping other men to navigate life.
Mm.
And I do that from a position not of expertise or having finished that process in myself, but very much as somebody who is learning to navigate life. And I sometimes think I'm a recovering man in the sense that we come into the world as boys, we grow into men, and are conditioned, taught in so many different ways what it means to be a man. And what I've come to realize in midlife is that many of the stories about what it is to be a man are a cage. And we're caged by the stories that we have. And that's as true for me as it is for anybody else. So when you say what's on my heart, I could reflect on what aspects of being a man I'm working with right now, or I'm seeing come up in my life with the people I work with. And it's indeed, it then takes me to reflect on some of those stories and some of the stories that I learned. And I learned from my parents. I mean, we tend to think boys get most of their influence from dad, but I think it comes from mum as well.
I agree.
Parents, family, teachers. And I realized that I grew up and was shaped by that world. And I'm 64 years old, so I'm talking about, brought up in the 60s and early 70s. And therefore, many of the stories that were in the culture then, which are what we now think of as traditional masculine roles, were very much part of the deal. And I became quite fluent in navigating the world that's constructed to work for men, because the world has been constructed to work more for men than for women, let's say.
Mm.
And that's the story, not only of the last 60 years, it's the story of the last hundreds of years, that we've created a world that is designed for the preferences and the advancement of male interests at the expense of women and their interests. I hope that's not controversial. I suspect you might agree with me on that. Speaking
No,
from the other perspective, we might say, yeah.
yeah, yes. Even if it is controversial, it's fine. This is a safe space for all of that. So yeah, go ahead.
Right. So I think I grew up and I was fairly fluent in navigating that world. And I didn't, for many years, I was deeply committed to personal transformation work and sought it out in different ways, in different spaces. And then my career, aged about 30, turned into the realm of transformation. And I worked as a trainer and as a coach and as a speaker. And if you'd ask me, I'd say my business is creating spaces for transformation.
Mm.
But I wasn't using the lens of my masculinity or my maleness as a lens to look at my behavior, my own behavior. And it took me a number of years to come to see the importance of that. And I got to see the importance of it, Amy, really when life stopped working for me on the way in the way that it previously had. I'd gotten to roughly 50 years of age and had been able to make life work for me. I'd had a 10-year career in corporate. I'd had a 10-year or so career as a consultant, self-employed or running my own business, consulting to large companies. I'd had a roughly 10-year career followed doing something much more vocational, working in a non-profit. And aged aged about 50, I can't remember exactly. My
Yeah.
wife and I moved to Peru, and we had a very strong sense that we were called to go and live in Peru, and that there was some work for us to do there to support indigenous people in Peru and Ecuador became our focus.
Wow.
That there was a link from the non-profit that I'd been working with, and the two of us ended up in living in the end we're living in Ecuador, trying to set up a social venture that would help indigenous people in that part of the world, help indigenous people to become financially independent, often in very simple ways, helping them be more effective at harvesting and selling crops that they grew on their land. Because what we knew and could see was that when those people had financial independence, had sources of income from their own efforts, they were able to resist the extractive industries, which would otherwise be drilling for oil underneath the forest floor or mining copper under the mountainside. So
Yeah.
so we set off with hearts full of good intention, some connections from the work I'd been doing in the nonprofit, and our venture just failed to gain any traction at all. There's a longer story here, but the essence of it is that we were defeated. My wife and I were very much defeated by the process. We
Mm.
used up the vast majority of our savings. We ended up with no social venture that was working. We had no other way. We had to retreat from Ecuador back here to the US, which is our adopted home. Both my wife and myself are British, as you might tell from the accent. But
I wondered, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So we ended up back here, and for the first time, I couldn't make life work for me. I hadn't made life work for me, and I
Mhm.
ran into all sorts of reactions to that because as men, we're we're taught that the very essence of our worth is what we can produce. So to be successful is to be, that's a measure of our worth, and without a measure of that without a measure of success, it's very easy to lose a sense of worth. And so I began to see how the world I'd constructed through male eyes was actually this myth, this collection of stories that keep us trapped in playing the role of men. And it's from there that I've begun the process of unraveling that for myself, freeing myself from that cage, and
Mm.
helping other men to do the same. And that's the work that I do. And so I'm continually employed in looking at my own limitations, the limitations I have because I see the world as a man,
Mm.
and helping other men to see the stories that are caging them. Yeah, that's how I arrive in this space, Amy. Does that make sense?
It does. It reminds me of a story from my own life
Uh-huh.
that when you talked about how the way you were living life wasn't working for you anymore, I experienced that in my life too. I lived 10 years with a broken neck that went undiagnosed for 6 months and fought my way through living that to reclaim my life, strength, resilience, pushing through, and got to a point where that was no longer working for me. And I didn't know how to handle it. And I ended up in a mental health hospital for a week.
Right.
And yeah, and what I found out was that it took the same amount of strength to ask for help, to allow myself to fall apart and ask for help, that
Right.
it took to fight through that 10 years with a broken neck, but it's just a different form of strength.
Yeah.
And I think that we don't allow ourselves to see strength in that way, that strength takes many forms, but we
Yeah.
don't allow ourselves to see it. And what happened, the part that reminded me of what you shared is that when I came out of that mental health hospital, my soul told me I needed to share my story, my experience. And I
Mm,
began
mhm.
talking about it publicly on my socials, hashtag authentically Amy. And I got so many private messages from men saying, keep talking about this. You don't know how much you're helping us. We can't talk about this openly because we will be seen as weak,
Yeah.
but you're helping us and you don't even know it. And it gives me chills because message after message poured in from men who are afraid to talk about this, but are dealing with it nonetheless.
Yeah, and I can feel that as you tell me that story, Amy,
Yeah.
because it's terrifying, and I expect you know this feeling very well. It's terrifying when the tools that you think help you navigate life no longer work.
Yeah.
So for you, it might have been grit and determination to push on through, and in a certain way, that's a very male story as well. That
Yes.
we don't need help, we're independent, we can make it, and we will make it because our worth depends on it. And when the tactics that you've learned to do that don't work, it's terrifying. And the real strength, I was this came to me as you were saying, is the strength it takes, and I'm still learning this in so many ways, the strength it takes to surrender,
Mhm.
the strength it takes to allow. And that's quite alien territory for many men, and for me, the allowing. What can I really allow? Well, I've had so many gorgeous moments when I've been shown a much larger reality than the 3D reality that we walk around in every day. And I've
Yes.
been blessed to explore that in all sorts of different ways, in sacred ceremonies and with sacred medicines and in, not only those ways, but I have a sense that there's a larger reality. We live in a cosmos which is an entire mystery to us. And here we are, one little species trying to make sense of it all, trying to archive it all and write it all down in ways that, we've got it. We've mastered life. Well,
Yeah.
that's a folly on the grandest scale. And and if I were to really accept that and allow that in my life every day, I would start the day with some sort of inquiry about how, what wants to happen this day. It wouldn't be my agenda. It would be how I could weave my own agency into a larger tapestry. That is the tapestry of the continuation of life, and 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 the strength it takes to surrender into that is tremendous because it's so alien to the way we've been brought up. So yeah, we've got very similar experiences in a way here. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. What it reminds me of is this is a channeled, I don't know if you're familiar with Bashar or Daryl Anka, who channels Bashar.
Right.
But one of the things Bashar shares is that life is meaningless, that we forget that life is meaningless, that there is no meaning ascribed to anything that happens in our lives until we assign the meaning to it. So, whatever's happening in our lives, we get to choose whether it's good, whether we decide it's good or whether we decide it's bad. And that's part of that control, I think. Instead of just allowing it to be what it is, we feel like we need to assign a meaning to it so that it makes more sense to us. Because, like you said, this plane that we're on doesn't make a lot of sense to us. And so I
Right.
feel like that's something that we struggle with as in these human bodies.
Absolutely. And I make use of a very similar idea by talking about the stories that we make up, or the stories that we live in. And because we make meaning of the world, we are in fact living in stories that we've made up. And
Yes.
so we have stories about what it is to be a man. I'm sure there are stories about what it means to be a woman, or what's required of you as a woman, and what women do and women don't do. In the same way as I'm exploring those stories, which I describe as the bars of a cage. And I like to think that inside the cage, we've forgotten our own wholeness. And you know, you may have been blessed to. I don't know if you're a mother, Amy, or you've been able to hold a newborn child and
Yes.
look in the eyes of a newborn child, and that's a holy moment if ever there was.
Yes.
Uh, and it's a way for me of communicating to other people that the capacity we have to see that precious quality inside us as humans, that place. And I think of it as our wholeness, and it's a place from which we have access to the full range of human genius. We're creative, we're loving, we're capable, we're energetic, we're witty, we can persevere, we have courage, we have kindness, and all those qualities are in us until the bars of the cage come into play. And that happens in men on sitting on dad's knee, or being shown how to throw yourself into a sports match. Or in my case, I was set up to have a wrestling match with my brother every week. Every Sunday night, my brother and I were kind of queued up to have a wrestling match.
Wow.
I'm not sure why we did that. It just seemed to be, it became a pattern. And what was I learning from that? And there's another bar in the cage. And I'm learning that I have to compete, and then I have to win, and that aggression counts, and winning is what gets me affection. And all of these lessons come
Hmm.
in and start to help me forget that wholeness. So I'm no longer as readily in touch with my kindness, or my patience, or my generosity, or my sense of cooperation, not competition. Yeah, but the wholeness doesn't go away, and so when we can identify the stories that are caging us, and learn to disempower those stories, we can recover that wholeness and that sense of the full humanity that exists within us, which is what and our capacity to reach that is our capacity to really be free in the world. Freedom is the capacity to exercise our full humanity. And gosh, do we need that now? We need that now because the stories that are governing us collectively are so dark and so limiting right now.
Oh,
So,
so true. We forget that these bodies are just containers for our souls, that we really are a soul living in a physical vessel, and that we all have a soul that's in there that is very much similar to all of the other souls that are out there. And we choose, like society teaches us to only see the body, but
yeah,
we forget that the soul underneath is what really matters.
yeah, and we encourage individuality to almost an extreme degree, so that the very essence of our collective experience and the need we have for community and the way we thrive in community is lost. And I live in this house separate from anybody else except my wife, and that's a bubble.
Sure.
And it's yeah, we've pressed towards this story of, yes, you can do it, and it's only you that matters, and pull yourself up by the bootstraps and grab what you want out of life. Those stories have become so ingrained in our thinking that and the impact of that is what we see around us. Yeah.
They really have. It's something that you mentioned reminds me of, as a female, it's different than being a male, of course, but I came into this world in a state of masculinity. Like, it doesn't mean I was male. It just means that my mom was a single mom. She was working a full-time job, and I had to pretty much fight for myself. Nothing against my parents at all. It
Right.
just was that is the state that I was born into this world into. And so I like to say that I was born into this masculine state where I had to take control and fight for what I needed, and all of that. And I only came to understand this recently, like within the past year, and it has helped me understand what has gone wrong with relationships in my life, because I have had that masculine energy about me, and it has gotten me far in life. But it has
Yeah.
also screwed up a lot of other things in my life because I didn't understand it. But you're talking about it now in a way that can help men understand what's going on, And I know just the knowledge of that has helped me so much. And so I can imagine putting this out there to help men understand this concept it can be daunting but very empowering. Do you see that with the clients that you work with and with yourself?
Absolutely. It's almost as if the stories that I'm talking about, they're invisible to us and they act on us unconsciously. So just as you learned male traits, as it were, or male ways to succeed in that world as a girl, you still had to swim in the same water as the rest of us. So you were learning those ways. And we as men learn those ways, and we don't even realize the world is we don't realize those stories are at play in our lives.
Yes.
Let's say that. And then when we do, if we wake up to it, then it can be quite a shocking moment to actually realize that we've been living inside a story. But the beauty of that is that it means we can change the story, and so we have the capacity to change the story. But there's something that you said, which I think is also really important for men to see and to understand. And it's that the world we've created denies us the full contribution, perspective, wisdom, and beauty that flows through the feminine. And so you weren't brought up in your story, Amy. You clearly weren't brought up or encouraged to cultivate
Mhm.
your femininity or your feminine ways,
Right.
or the aspects of the feminine which can play out in women. Not
Mhm.
exclusively. We all have masculine and feminine within us,
Yes.
but by and large, women exhibit more femininity than men, and they're and so we live in a world in which the marginalization of a woman's perspective and the shaming of a woman's ways it just means we don't have access, and we as men don't. It takes something for us to learn that we've excluded something of great value to us individually and collectively. We've shut ourselves off from that perspective, which can flow through you if you're emboldened, encouraged, empowered, allowed to do that. And so there's a whole relearning, I think, for men about the value of the feminine. And I could go on about that because I think that that's a very big topic. But I want to pause and hear how you hear me talking about the value of the feminine from a man's perspective.
It's very refreshing. I will tell you that it's very refreshing because I know, especially in the way the world is now and has been for the last year or two, that women feel forgotten, women feel overlooked, women feel unimportant, women feel like they are being controlled by the masculinity in our world. And it's not just me saying that. I have heard many other women say that because of the people in power in our country, and the choices they have made. I
Mm.
don't know that they intended to make women feel that way, but that is the result of their decisions is women are feeling this way. And what I am understanding with women is that we are very strong. I mean, I know women, we are very, very strong. And when women start to feel that way, unimportant, overlooked, they want to fight back. Like they really want to come back and say, like, oh, hold on here, time out. Like this is not okay. We want you to know that we have as much value as you do, and we want to be seen. And so I don't know how that's going to play out or what's going to become of that, but I do feel like women are feeling like they need to have a voice, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, and I agree with your observations about the last couple of years, and I want to extend the arc, the timeline of that story. The project of putting men in power is thousands of years old. I mean,
Right.
some people trace it back to the beginning of the agricultural revolution and the beginning of us living in settled, organized ways, being able to generate surplus and surplus grain, surplus food would be the first thing that we had. And having prior to that lived in a subsistence way, hunting and gathering, now we generate surplus. And once we've got surplus, we have power. And so the beginning of this story, some say is 12,000 years ago. And one of the ways I think about it is that the voice of women, you say, I don't think it will be silenced. I don't think it can be silenced. It's been
Yeah.
oppressed. The last century has shown a marked increase in women's access to the resources and opportunities that they deserve every bit as much as men do.
Right.
There's been a backsliding of late that, we live in a world right now which seems to want to take us back to what are called traditional values, which aren't really traditional because tradition might take us back 12,000 years. They're
Mm.
traditional in the sense that they point back to a period in time when patriarchy was unopposed, largely unopposed. Let's say largely, because I'm sure women have always resisted patriarchy.
Right.
But there's been a time when that was quietened down sufficiently. And so the traditional view is often really just a way of talking about going back to that very convenient time when men having power over the way we live and organizing our society in ways that serve us was easy and convenient. So I have great faith that the voice of women will not be silenced. And I mean, a perspective I also see in this and like to bring into this, Amy, is that women are actually the carriers of life in a way that men are not. We're not,
Yeah.
we never will be, we can't be. Um, and you can look at that, I think you can look at that biologically. I think you can look at it spiritually as well. And women are the carriers of life. We, as or men, might try to control that, but essentially the force of life will not be repressed. It's a vain attempt. It's like when we pour concrete over the earth and we think that will kill the life underneath it, and it won't. Eventually, a green shoot finds its way up, forces its way through the concrete, and life wins out. And
Yeah.
I have a firm belief that life will win out in this particular experiment. I mean, planet Earth is an experiment in consciousness.
Yeah.
Here we are. It's a quiet little corner of the Milky Way in a cosmos that's vast beyond our imagination. And here on
Right.
one planet, we have an experiment where a form of life called the human has become conscious and has gained co-creative power. We have the capacity now to affect our destiny that other forms of life don't have. And we have this tremendous power. We've grown into this tremendous power, but our wisdom hasn't kept pace with our power. And will this experiment succeed? Will we evolve? Will we be able to survive on this planet as an intelligent species, or will we destroy ourselves the way we've destroyed civilizations on Easter Island, I think of,
Hmm.
where there was a thriving community of life, human life. It devoured all its resources and ended. We're in the process of devouring a lot of resources right now in uh,
Yeah.
in this way of life that we've developed. So I don't know how this experiment in life is going to play out, but I think while we're here, I'd like to imagine that by amplifying the feminine and by adjusting the masculine to so that we men can take the bars of the cage apart and we can live from our wholeness in a harmony with each other, men with women, humans with all other life on earth. If we can find that, then this experiment might flourish. I
Yeah.
think we're
Yeah.
living in
No.
pivotal times.
Right. It's so true. I completely agree. And, not just men and women working together to be that yin and yang, but also, as you mentioned earlier, inside each of us, we all have masculine and feminine energies within us and
Yeah.
learning to balance those in a healthy way. I think because, my business is called Polish the Mirror. It all starts within us. It all starts, you got to remove the things that aren't you to find the things that are you. And so I
Uh,
think it really starts within us learning to balance the masculine and feminine in whatever gender we are to be a more healthy person individually, so that then, because then it ripples out beyond us into our communities and into the world. And people tell me that I'm a permission slip, that I serve as a permission slip to help other people learn to be authentic and vulnerable. And I think that's a compliment. I think we can
yeah,
all be permission slips for other people to learn
I
how to
love
do
that.
this, to manage this masculine and feminine in a healthy way. And I think that's what you're doing. You're helping men do that.
I hope so. I do hope so. And I agree with you that change in the world, change on any scale, is an inside job. I mean, it does. It
Yeah.
starts with each of us, and that was. Do you know that lovely story about Gandhi, who and a mother took her son to see Mahatma Gandhi, and she had to wait in line to get an audience with him. And when she got to the front with her young son, she said, "My son, he eats too much sugar. Can you help him?" And Gandhi said, "Come back and see me in 2 weeks." Okay, she said, and she went away and came back 2 weeks later and stood in line again with her boy. Eventually got to be in front of Gandhi. She said, "Well, you sent me away for 2 weeks, I want my son to stop eating sugar." And Gandhi looked at the boy and said, "Stop eating sugar." And she said, "Well, why didn't you tell him that 2 weeks ago?" And he said, "2 weeks ago, I was still eating sugar." So it's an inside job.
Yeah, it so is, right? It so is. And I think we miss that part a lot, that we're always looking outside ourselves, or always looking for someone else to blame, or someone else is causing whatever we're going through, or we're looking for validation external to us. And
Yeah,
one of the things I learned throughout my journey of living with a broken neck was that, oh no, it starts inside. Like, it's my book is called Finding My Hero Within, because
right.
that knight in shining armor I was waiting to come rescue me was found in my reflection in the mirror. And it's
Oh,
like
it's
that
the
with
mirror.
all of us.
Right.
It's there. It's been there the whole time. We're just looking in the wrong place. And so I love the work that you're doing to help men look inside to see what's going on with them, so that they can
Yeah.
impact the world around them in a more healthy way. It's really, really beautiful.
Yeah. And it's at each of those levels. It's first of all, can we gain freedom as men? So, and I talk about narrative liberation, of liberating ourselves from those invisible unconscious stories that keep us caged. And the first beneficiary is ourselves. We get access to the our wholeness again. And what is it to be free and easy and not feel that you have to conform or play a role? And can we come back to earning that freedom? And I'm sort of feeling it in myself, because I'm very much, this is all process for me as well. What is it to be able to be authentically me? That's
Yeah.
the first freedom. And then, of course, all the lives that we touch immediately, and the people we live with, the people we love, and the people we work with, perhaps, and the influence we can have with them. And I can't help but have an eye on the larger scale of things as well, and this whole experiment here on planet Earth. I mean, that I've been moved by that thought most of my adult life. I wrote a book 20 years ago called "Your Planet Needs You," and it
Oh,
was really
wow.
it was an impassioned cry to myself as much as anybody else to say, "Hey, let's find a way of interrupting the patterns that we live in collectively now, because of the harm that they're doing to the earth, and the harm we're doing to each other, and the spiritual emptiness that we're living with." And can we wake up and become active agents in creating a new way of being, create a new way of living together? And that's still work in progress. And perhaps it's more urgent than ever to be doing that
Ah,
work. Yeah.
absolutely. I totally agree. And, a lot of people think that there's so many of us humans just have it out, just are looking for the negative and are all, bad. And I have met so many people who can have this conversation like you and I are having. Like, we really want what's best for humanity and for this earth and for to take care of the place that we live. I think that we don't understand how many people there are out there like us who really, really want this, who really want what's best,
Right.
because the voices of the opposite seem to be louder. And
Yeah,
that, right? And so I think, and I know
absolutely.
you believe in probably energy and vibrational frequency, that we're putting out the frequency that comes back to us. And that I feel like that's why I'm meeting so many of these people who
Mm.
are believing in the same thing, because that's the frequency at which I'm vibrating. But
Yeah,
when we change that, then we start to see the world in a different way. And it really is a powerful, powerful thing.
yeah. The Amy, the non-profit I worked for 10 years ago is called the Pachamama Alliance. Pachamama is a word from the Quechua language in South America. It means Mother Earth. Um,
Mhm.
but the work of the part of the work of the Pachamama Alliance was to and still is to awaken us as citizens of the world.
Mm.
And there's a phrase that the organization developed that is such a powerful phrase. It's to talk about a world, a future that is environmentally sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, and socially just.
Wow.
And that trinity, my sense is that trinity covers every aspect of our lives, individually and collectively. Environmentally
Yeah.
sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, and socially just. And my job for years was to travel around the world with the message of that organization and to talk to people and I went to 6 continents. I lost count of the number of countries that I went to. And wherever I went, I knew that if we created the right circumstances and I could look in the eye of other people, I would see in them, and they might even be able to articulate their desire for a whole and healed world,
Mm.
their desire to create a way of living in which their kids could grow up with equality of opportunity and resource, and know that they themselves would be able to raise kids that would also share that in future generations. And that lives so deeply in all of us. It gets masked over by the
Hmm.
stories that we tell ourselves, by the
Oh, yeah.
stories that we come to believe, that the stories that are propagated, sometimes very intentionally, the stories that are used to control us, to divide us, to keep us small, to rob us of our agency, to distract us with the cheap temptations of baubles and experiences, which we're told will make us better people.
Yeah.
But the reality is that spark lives in all of us, and we are that force is. I think that's also the force of life in some ways we were talking about
Yeah.
earlier. And there
Yeah.
are forces arrayed against it, and we live in a time, and I love this metaphor as well, Amy, if I can. We live in a
Sure.
time where old ways of doing things are dying. We are
Mm.
hospicing old structures of power, old systems, and they're making a lot of noise right now as they're dying. But the structures of control and dominance that have kept the world dulled for so many years are breaking down. So we're hospicing old structures, and at the same time we're midwifing whole new ways. So when you talk about the
Mm.
vibration that you recognize and feel and resonate with other people in, that is the emergence of something new. It doesn't make the news. It doesn't make the headlines. It's not talked about. It's not newsworthy, but you know it because you're talking to people, and your podcast is creating the space in which those connections are being made and amplified. So you're an agent in bringing forth that whole new vibration. That you're helping to midwife a new
Mm.
possibility. That's what you're doing. And thank you for turning your own pain, your own misfortune, your own difficulties into this space that you create. You know,
Mhm.
what is it that you had to do? How much did you have to look in that mirror and polish that mirror so that you could be here holding a space for this conversation? And hopefully this conversation will reach people who and not tell them something they don't know, but remind them of something they've always known.
Yes.
Remind them of something that's inside of them the whole time, a frequency they have access to already, but has been drowned out or hidden behind the bars of a cage. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I'm almost speechless. I have never ever thought about what I'm doing in those terms, in that sense, and that's really, really beautiful. I just know that my soul told me I need to do this, guided me to do this, and I just allowed it to be. I just allow it to be what it is and to take the shape that it needs to take for humanity and for our world. And to see you reflect that back to me almost brings me to tears. It's just so beautiful. So I just thank you so much for that. It really means a lot to see it from your perspective.
Well, I'm glad, and you said I just allowed it to happen, and that word "just" is a funny word.
Mm, yeah,
You know, I just allowed it to happen. If we take that word out, we say I allowed it to happen.
yeah.
You know, there was a choice that you made,
Hmm.
and it's a choice whether you were aware of it or not. I'm going to suggest it was a choice grounded in a deep humility,
Yes.
and that's we talked about this right at the top of the interview was there's strength to surrender, having the strength to let go. And humility is a tremendous takes a tremendous strength to really find humility and stop trying to have the world work on our terms and
Mm.
somehow come into a different relationship with life and the force of life. So thank you for allowing it to happen. You know,
Yes.
that's that's what was going on there, Amy. I think. Yeah.
Ah, yeah. I agree. I agree. That intuition, it can be scary. It can be scary, but it's so powerful and beautiful when we learn
Yeah.
to trust it. It
So
really
how
is.
did your soul let you know?
I
How did
would,
it come through to you?
well, I believe it's something that you have to hone. Like you just,
Mhm.
with me, and I know everyone's body receives the intuition differently, but mine is it just keeps coming. I keep feeling this guidance, I would say, to
Mhm.
do this, to do this, to do this. And when I avoid it, it just is like in my gut, in my heart, it just is wrenching. Like you have to do this or you're not going to rest almost. And I have learned that that's my intuition speaking to me. And it's given me some really what seemed like crazy outlandish ideas that have turned out to be the best. And so I've learned to trust it. As
Mhm.
scary and uncomfortable as it is sometimes, I always know that it has my best interest and the best interest of humanity and the world at heart. So, yeah, it's become a really beautiful thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's beautiful. Thank you for
Yeah.
being that conduit. Yeah, and we all
Yeah.
have access to intuition. I think it's easier for some of us to access it. I say some of us, I don't think I access intuition as readily as some others and like and yourself. But I think it's available to all of us, and it's a quiet voice. The more we listen to it, I think the louder it can become, and the clearer
Yes.
it can become.
Yes. The more
Yeah,
we learn to recognize it.
yeah.
Yeah, and it gets, that's where my Polish the Mirror framework came in to be, is that it's covered, like our intuition is covered by so many things, pain and stress and expectations and the roles we play and the hats we wear, and that it's just learning to uncover all of that to get at the core of who we are. And it takes a lot of internal work. It's not easy and it's not comfortable and it's not fun. But man,
Yeah.
it's so worth it. It's so worth it. So
Yeah. And
powerful.
And I notice as well there's a story angle to it because, as you say, we have to make meaning of everything and we have stories. And we have a story that intuition isn't real. It's kind of you know, it's not scientifically demonstrable. We can't
Right.
we can't put it in a bell jar. And so, there's a tradition of diminishing intuition and dismissing it.
Hmm.
And it's a trait that's associated with women more than men, most often.
Right.
So it's part of the gift that women have fluency in, which we've decried and diminished. And I'm delighted that it's something we can talk about more openly and acknowledge. And I think the taboo about it is disappearing fast because it's another way of knowing the world. We've gotten
Hmm.
so, one of the things I learned from being with indigenous people in the rainforest in the Amazon is there are different ways of knowing the world, and we're very good at knowing the world intellectually and rationally. We deal with information, and we deal with cause and effect and linearity and logic. And the families that we stayed with in the rainforest would wake up before dawn. They'd sit together as a family, or sometimes even as a whole community. But just picture a family unit, and there's probably mum and dad, and maybe Nana and Granddad might be there, and a rook of kids, and they're all sitting around, and with a particular tea that they brew, they share the dreams they had the night before, and they decide what to do that day by the dreams that they've had.
Hmm.
It's like you're taking dreams that seriously. We don't. We have in our culture, we don't have the same way of thinking about dreams. And it seems absurd that you would decide. And we've sat with families in the early hours of the day, and they'll share their dreams with each other, and they'll decide if it's a good day to go hunting or a good day to have a conversation with somebody else from another family, and they'll determine how to shape their day from that. An entirely different way of knowing the world comes to us in dream space.
Wow.
Yeah,
That is so cool. I don't know what other word to use, but I love that so
yeah,
much. And it's almost like another sense. I have heard it called, like a sixth sense or
yeah,
whatever, because it is another sense that is just not really measurable.
yeah.
I think.
Yeah, can you imagine
Wow.
starting your day in the office by saying, "Well, I just need to decode my dreams from last night so I can decide what
Right.
my priorities are for the day." It would, it would
Oh,
be, it would get a few strange looks, that one, wouldn't it?
it definitely would for sure. Oh my gosh, I love that though. Wow. Well, I
Yeah.
know I want to be respectful of your time and I want to give you a chance to share with everyone what it is you do, if there is more that you want to expand on, and how people can reach you if they would like to work with you.
Thank you, Amy. Well, I feel you give me a wonderful opportunity to share the way I see the world, and so the work that I do is to try and put that perspective in service of people who want their lives to be different than they are. And I'm working predominantly with men. I have a website which is wholeandfree.me, whole and free, because
Okay.
I'm encouraging men to break free of the stories that have had us trapped and find the wholeness that is ours. And I know that that's the route to individual liberty, and collectively, it's the route to us finding a more balanced space as a human experiment, much as we've talked about. So you can connect with me through wholeandfree.me. There are some free resources there. If you're a guy who's stuck in the middle of his life and asking the question, what's all of this about? What's next? Why is life all grind and no glitter? If that's who you are, there's a free resource for you there. It's called the Midlife Reset, and you can download that for free at the website. And I'm available to help groups of people, and I work as a speaker as well. So, Amy, if you or any of your listeners know audiences who would benefit from the perspectives that I've touched on today, I'd be delighted to, be introduced to places where that might serve. Um, and I'm open for collaboration of any other kind, any collaboration that might lead us towards a more humane, more equitable subsistence here. I think I'm open to all of that. Thank you for allowing me to share that. Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely. I am just so grateful that you took the time to be here and share your story and your experience with us and how you're helping the world and helping humanity. And I just love your energy. I resonate with the energy that you have, and it's very powerful. And again, I'm just so grateful. Thank you for being here, Jon. It was so great to meet you.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you for holding this space and for being, yes, a midwife of a new way of being here on Earth. Thank you.
Oh, it's my honor. For those of you watching and listening, thank you so much for tagging along. Please share this so that we can get Jon's message out to the world and help more people. But until next time, I will be here holding space for you. Thank you for being here. And to my guest, thank you for your honesty, your courage, and your truth. It's an honor to hold space for people like you. If something in this episode stirred something in you, if you breathed deeper, softened, or felt a pull inward, consider this your invitation. Whether you're ready to share publicly or prefer to remain anonymous, I'd love to hold space for you too. This work isn't just for podcasts, it's for people everywhere. And I'm bringing it into businesses, schools, communities, organizations, anywhere humans need a place to be and for someone to hold space for them. To learn more or to schedule your own session or to be a guest on this podcast, visit www.getamyshelp.com or just reach out to me. I'll meet you with open arms and a quiet, sacred seat. Until next time, thank you for being beautifully, unapologetically human.